Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you this fine morning?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks very much. I'm good. How you doing?
Yeah, good, good. Thanks everyone for joining us. This is the Real Scottish Politics Live national Facebook live stream. I'm here with Xander. I'm Hamish Morrison, political reporter for the National, and we're going to talk you through today's kind of top stories and what's going on today. So today's front page, we had the Prime Minister saying that a yes vote would be utterly tragic for the whole world. Not a man, inclined against hyperbole. Boris Johnson, isn't he? That's quite a big claim. Utterly tragic for the whole world.
Yeah, I mean, it's demonstrably not true, as we've had letters and support pouring in from other parts of the world where there are their own independence movements. I mean, I was just on over the weekend. There was a huge protest organised by groups in the Basque Country and Catalonia, obviously two separate sides of Spain there, and they lit beacons across the length of the Pyrenees Mountains for people's right to decide. Obviously, well, the Basque Country, God, might get my year. It was 2007, 2008. They the government there wanted to ask. It wasn't an official referendum, but they wanted to have some consultation with the public on independence, and that was blocked by the Spanish state. And then obviously in 2017, Catalonia had their referendum, which again was deemed illegal by the Spanish state and saw nine of the leaders jailed. So an independence referendum in Scotland, I doubt it would be viewed as utterly tragic by the movements in those places as well. As just one example.
But picturing sort of like an uncontacted Amazonian tribe shedding a tear
Yes.
when they're there. But yes, well, I can't, like, it's just,
Well, it's just all part of the stepping up of this like anti-independence rhetoric, isn't it? I mean,
yeah,
as you said, they love the hyperbole. I mean, we had the inevitable from Anna Sawa yesterday as well, saying that independence would help Vladimir Putin, which of course is the new thing that everybody says whenever there's something they don't like, domestic politics. So yeah, it's just more nonsense. I imagine we're going to see a lot more of it in between now and October 2023. So settle in.
And you'll kind of notice as well that as well as kind of like hardening some parts of their rhetoric, they kind of soften other bits as well. So there's like, this would be utterly tragic for the whole world. But that's couched in quite a lot of like, oh, well, isn't Scotland so fantastic? Isn't Scotland, such an important, integral part of the Union? Where, I think when this question starts to seem serious, to sort of unionists in Westminster, they suddenly remember that they have to, put on the face of wanting Scotland to stay in the Union as well. So they have to talk up, all of Scotland's contributions to defence. Was the one yesterday, Tory MP Brendan Clark-Smith said that, it would be utterly tragic for the whole world if the UK Armed Forces was to face a division or an obstacle of that kind. So
I think was it Boris Johnson that said that in a response to.
Oh yeah, sorry, yeah, no, I've misread that actually. But yeah,
Brendan Clark-Smith said one of those troublemakers who we no doubt will hear more from. But yeah, so Boris Johnson's obviously in the news this morning again because Simon MacDonald, a former top civil servant in the Foreign Office, has published a letter. It was sent to the BBC, but he's also just published it, accusing Number 10 of telling straight lies about this Chris Pincher affair.
Yeah, fibs about Chris Pincher. It does seem that literally the dogs in the street knew about allegations against him. Like the Downing Street cat probably knew that, had heard some sort of vicious rumours about Chris Pincher, and they're not just of the sort of, they're actually, that's kind of doing it down a bit. They're not just vicious rumours, they are genuine formal complaints, serious concerns that have blocked him from having senior roles in the past. He also resigned after he resigned as a party whip a few years ago over allegations of kind of similar, I think, groping. And none of these, and it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems to me that none of these these investigations or whatever have gone all the way. They've never fully found him, kind of formally guilty of any conduct, but they have been enough to stop him from getting jobs or have questions raised even by Carrie Johnson when she worked at Conservative HQ as the Director of Communications there. So,
well, I think that actually might be the crux of what Simon McDonald. He's a crossbench peer and a former permanent undersecretary at the Foreign Office. So, because Number 10 have been saying that there were no official complaints against Chris Pincher. They've said that there may have been these rumours, but that's all they were, and there was nothing actually official. And McDonald's come out and said that actually a group of officials complained to him about Pincher's behaviour, and an investigation upheld the complaint. Pincher apologised and promised not to repeat the inappropriate behaviour. So he's saying that there actually was a formal complaint that was upheld by an investigation, and therefore Number 10's statement that there wasn't, Number 10's claims that Boris Johnson wasn't aware of Pincher's behaviour, just don't hold any water at all. I mean, people can obviously make up their own minds about who to believe, but whether or not Boris Johnson's track record on telling the truth is overly in his favour in this case.
Yeah, and this is coming against the backdrop of numerous other allegations and investigations into general conduct, whether that's like sexual, harassment, whether that's watching porn in the House of Commons, whether that's being a convicted paedophile, all of these sort of allegations that are kind of bringing back this Pestminster scandal of people reporting really inappropriate behaviour in the workplace, and if the workplace is Westminster and the people doing that are some of the most powerful people in the country, and that does really become quite an unsafe place to work.
Yeah, I think people might be feeling the pressure down in Number 10 today. I mean, haven't quite got a story up on it yet, but there's some long faces in the Cabinet Office. So keep your eyes on the website in the near future. Because Boris Johnson's taken the quite recent PR decision of allowing cameras in to film his opening statement to Cabinet in the morning. And obviously, if there's a big announcement, like maybe he's met Zelensky again, who knows? Then he
probably has given Zelensky a little call about this. There's such good things that you just needed to bounce some ideas off him.
Yeah, then obviously that's good for him. That makes some good news. But on days where the Cabinet might be feeling a little unstable, then it's probably not quite so clever having cameras in there. So yeah, we have something on that really soon. But we don't want to speak just about the Conservatives non-stop, because we also want to speak about Labour very briefly, who had a bit of a car crash day yesterday.
And that's our stretched his legs a little bit to go all the way to Westminster to make the case for Scottish independence, which is great. He's only currently got Ian Murray down there doing that, so he had to join him.
Yeah, he needs some backup. But I was actually surprised, let's say, to see Anna Sawar again saying no deals, no pacts, no coalitions. I mean, it's the exact same rhetoric we heard 9 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, what happened after the council elections?
Well, 2 Labour councillors in Edinburgh got suspended for not backing their deal with Tories. It's kind of an interesting one, isn't it? Because the whole idea is that they're I mean, Anna Sauer saying we don't aspire for second place, but he is sort of planning for Keir Starmer's Labour Party to not get over the line to form a majority government, so that then they can ask the SNP, I'm going to dare the SNP to vote down Keir Starmer's minority government's budget, and then deliver Thatcher again, as the SNP did in 1979. But it's just kind of so the SNP can't vote against Labour, but Labour can vote against the SNP, and with the Tories, it just seems like they have to kind of get their story straight on that, don't they?
Well, yeah, I can't see how anybody would believe them. If I'm a unionist sitting on the union side of the fence and deciding whether or not to vote for Douglas Ross's Conservatives or Anna Sarwar's Labour, and let's be honest, they are basically pitching for a huge chunk of the same voters. Why would I believe that Anna Sauer won't strike deals with the SNP? Sorry, not the NSP, the SNP. The Tories haven't done that. They may have had a few very unofficial relationships in a couple of councils, but they at least seem to be sticking by their guns in this way. Whereas Sauer says no deals with the SNP one day, and then gives the go ahead to a coalition with the SNP and Dumfries and Galloway the next day. I mean, who's he pitching to here? I don't see how Labour's really gonna win the undecided voters, the swing voters with this pitch. I just don't see.
Well, it's not just the undecided voters as well. It's the huge amount of former Labour voters that have went over to support the SNP across the whole of the Central Belt nearly, who backed Labour for generations and then went off them in a big way. And now it seems like there's not like this kind of conciliation. It's almost a kind of ransom. It's like a kind of threat to those people. It's saying like, well, we're not going to back, the SNP, so you need to go back to Labour. It's not necessarily offering a kind of olive branch of, well, we've listened, we've changed, we've taken on board the feelings of that Labour voters in Scotland felt taken for granted and relied upon for so long. It's more of a kind of ultimatum to them of, well, come back to Labour or else.
Yeah.
Basically.
I mean, the promises coming out of this. I mean, there's also sort of Labour promised to reform the House of Lords.
No, to abolish the House of Lords.
Oh yeah, sorry, abolish it entirely.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Labour's last attempt to reform the House of Lords, they just bottled it. They just bottled it entirely. I mean, they said that they were going to get rid of all the hereditary peers, but then they U-turned at the last minute and they left 92 hereditary peers in the House of Lords. And something I saw this morning, they also created 10 more life peers, so that of the hereditary peers that they scrapped, 10 of them could stay in the Lords anyway. They just gave them life peerages, which kind of undermines the point of scrapping.
Yeah, they had a lot of very deep pocketed donors to keep happy. So,
well, they said that was just phase one of the reform, and that was 23 years ago now. We are waiting on phase two. So maybe Sawa will somehow scrap the House of Lords. We'll see.
Yeah, I find this idea of the kind of Senate idea interesting as well. I mean, I don't know how great the Americans' model of the Senate is for Britain.
I mean, I think any pitch on new checks and balances being brought into the UK system, any idea of like a cross nations council or a senate of regional mayors or whatever it might be, it has to deal with the fact that like the fundamental principle of the UK's unwritten constitution is parliamentary sovereignty. There is no law which a future parliament cannot undo, and no current law that the current parliament cannot undo. Like without changing that really fundamental rule of the UK democratic system, what checks and balances can you bring in? You can't have a check and balance on absolute parliamentary sovereignty, can you? So,
Yeah, and this other idea that he's floated of a legal obligation of cooperation. Yeah, it's a bit of a
which
mouthful.
falls at the same hurdle. You can't legally oblige a future UK Parliament to do anything because they have the sovereignty to override that rule. So I mean, Labour's.
I mean, that not also just end in. I mean, if that's an equally weighted, obligation. I don't know if anybody's actually fully interrogated this idea just because I saw it reported this morning, just in exact quotes of those words. It doesn't look like anyone's specially bothered to dig into what it means. Does that mean that the UK government could sue Holyrood to follow a certain course of action, or vice versa? And how would this not just result in two parliaments probably controlled by different parties, even more at odds with each other, than they can?
Well, these papers from Sarwar are going to complement separate papers from Gordon Brown on Labour's grand thinking on how to reform the UK. I mean, it seems like a lot of half-baked ideas, all with the real goal of trying to prevent Scottish independence rather than actually reforming the UK.
Yeah, and it's also a bit limp. This kind of like federalism / reformed UK / we're going to have a Senate of the regions or whatever. I think if you were to take any person in the middle of the street, in the street today, and ask them, what are the options for the UK's constitution over the next 2 years, they'd probably say independence or status quo. They're not going to start.
I think they might say what?
If you got someone that knew what you were on about, some unfortunate soul,
I've been
up on it all. I don't think that they would start hitting you with talk about federalism in a new second chamber of.
No, I've never heard anyone clamoring to talk about federalism.
Oh, I have.
Maybe it's on the app. Maybe the idea is on the app. Anyway, we better get back to business. So we will leave you there.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
The stories that we've been talking about in a lot more detail are all on our website. We'll have more stuff going up through the day. We'll have coverage of this latest fallout from Boris Johnson. We'll look at doing some roundups on what Labour's situation has put them in. So yeah, thanks very much for watching.
Yeah, thank you very much.